You kept thinking, if you could just explain yourself better, if you could just stop reacting so emotionally, if you could just say things the right way, then maybe the tension would finally stop. But somehow, no matter how careful you became, it still ended with you apologizing. And after a while, you stopped asking yourself, why does this feel wrong? You started asking, what's wrong with me? That is the part most people do not understand about emotional abuse. When you are living inside it, it rarely looks obvious. There is no dramatic moment where everything suddenly becomes clear. It happens slowly, quietly, psychologically, until one day you realize you have been shrinking yourself just to keep the peace. And the terrifying part is, you often do not notice it while it is happening. Because narcissistic abuse does not begin with cruelty. It usually begins with emotional closeness, attention, validation, feeling deeply understood. That is why people miss the signs at first. Your nervous system is attaching before the manipulation fully reveals itself. And once emotional attachment forms, your brain starts protecting the relationship even when the relationship starts hurting you. So when the criticism begins, you explain it away. When conversations suddenly leave you confused, you blame stress. When your feelings are dismissed, you tell yourself you are overreacting. And slowly, your confidence starts separating from your own reality. That is why people inside narcissistic abuse often become exhausted trying to explain themselves. Because the problem is never actually being solved. The reality keeps shifting. One day they are loving, the next day cold. One moment you feel close to them, the next moment you feel like you are the problem they need to tolerate. And your nervous system becomes trapped trying to emotionally stabilize something unstable. You start replaying conversations at night, thinking about your tone, your wording, your reactions. You become hyper-aware of tiny emotional shifts because your brain is trying to prevent conflict before it happens. That is what walking on eggshells really is. Not fear of one explosive moment, but the slow psychological conditioning of becoming emotionally responsible for another person's instability. And over time, you stop expressing yourself naturally. You become quieter, smaller, more careful, not because that is your personality, but because your nervous system learned that authenticity now carries consequences. This is why emotionally intelligent people often miss narcissistic abuse the longest, because they keep trying to understand it compassionately. They search for explanations instead of recognizing patterns. They assume communication can fix confusion, but manipulation survives through confusion. That is why you started doubting your memory, your feelings, your instincts, not because you were weak, because your nervous system was adapting to psychological inconsistency in real time. And eventually, the emotional exhaustion becomes so normal that you stop questioning it completely. You only focus on keeping things calm, keeping things stable, keeping them happy, even if it costs pieces of yourself. That is the hidden tragedy of narcissistic abuse. You do not lose yourself all at once. You lose yourself gradually through self-abandonment, through silence, through constant emotional self-correction, through repeatedly choosing peace over truth until your nervous system no longer knows the difference. And when people ask, why didn't you just leave? They do not understand something important. Confused people do not realize they are being psychologically destabilized while it is happening, especially when moments of warmth still exist inside the damage. That emotional inconsistency creates attachment, hope, and self-doubt at the same time, which is exactly why the signs become invisible from the inside. But the moment clarity finally arrives, everything changes. You suddenly realize you were never failing at love. You were surviving inside emotional confusion. And maybe the most painful realization is understanding how long you blamed yourself for something designed to make you doubt yourself in the first place. But once you finally see the pattern, you cannot unsee it anymore. And that clarity becomes the beginning of getting yourself back.